I have heard the Yu-Gi-Oh community refer to Exosisters as many things: nuns with guns, Super Saiyans, magical girls, but most commonly, sapphic sisters. Exosisters are exorcist sisters tasked with defending humanity from the threat of rampant demons. Through prayer and a pendant bestowed upon them from the heavens, Exosisters equip themselves with holy armaments with the power to combat any that dare desecrate the grave. Due to the perilous nature of the work, Exosisters do form bonds of sisterhood to work in pairs of two. But to my uneducated eyes, I just couldn't see the connections between Exosisters and lesbianism until I started looking into Yuri, and that is where things got very interesting very quickly. To start us off, what is Yuri? Yuri is a genre of Japanese media featuring intimate relationships between female characters. The word Yuri, a word that translates to lily in Japanese, from a gay men's magazine, Barazok, or Rose Tribe, where the term Yurijok, or Lily Tribe, was used to reference its female readers. From this usage, an association with Yuri and lesbianism developed, with the term later being reclaimed as the genre portraying intimate love, sex, or emotional connections between women. Despite many people associating Yuri with lesbianism, it is worth noting that Yuri expands beyond just romantic and sexual intimacy, including spiritual and even platonic relationships. As for the Yuri genre, the history of literature that portrays intimate female relationships predates the term Yuri in the form of class S. Going all the way back to the pre-war era of Japan, or before 1939, Japan experienced rapid industrialization, followed by an increased emphasis on education and freedom for women. During this time, Class S literature began developing as a genre for a couple of reasons. One is the Takarazuka Revue, a popular all-woman theater troupe where women took on both male and female roles. Among them, the women playing male roles referred to as otokoyaku were especially popular for a female audience. The other reason was the rapid creation of all-girls, mostly Catholic schools, founded on values of strictly defined hierarchies such as the Senpai-Kohai relationship and sisterhood under the name of solidarity among women. It was during this time that Class S literature came to being. As the precursor to Yuri, Class S literature has been referred to as Proto-Yuri, with many ideas and tropes established in Class S, eventually going on to influence future Yuri works. Fast forwarding to 1971, one such work is Shiroi Heya no Futari, or Couple of the White Room, a work many regard as the first Yuri manga. Even more recently, in the early 2000s, we have works like Maria Watches Over Us, or Mari Mite for short, that have resurrected tropes of old Class S, contributing to the proliferation of these tropes in Yuri for contemporary audiences. And now, all the way in the present day of 2022, we have the Exosisters. Let's take things one by one and go over what makes the Exosisters Yuri. Like I mentioned moments ago, Yuri is the Japanese word for lily. As such, many creators of Yuri works like to cue in perceptive audience members of the Yuri themes by hiding subtle references to lilies. For example, in Marimite, the all-girls Catholic school is called the Lilian Girls Academy, with an image of a lily as a school symbol. As for the Exosisters, being completely honest, I actually didn't notice any lilies before starting research for this video. But the moment I started looking for them, oh my god, there were lilies everywhere. Starting with the elite team Lilium that the Exosisters are a part of, the name Lilium is literally Latin for lily. The symbol for Lilium, showcased on every Exosister, is also a pair of intertwined lilies. And the pendants that the Exosisters use to transform is in the image of a moon and a lily. Once transformed, the Exosisters' holy weapons also bear lily imagery, such as Exosister Jibrin's rifle muzzle taking on the shape of a lily that can switch from bud form to bloom form. Exosister Caspitel's spear also has a spear socket in the shape of a budding lily. I'm sure there's more that I'm just not seeing, so do let me know if I missed anything. Though I do feel like this is already more than enough evidence to declare the Exosisters as a Yuri archetype, I didn't watch and read hours of Yuri content to not dig into all the references I could find. Like, did you know the white lilies has a double meaning? From a Christian perspective, a white lily is associated with the Virgin Mary as a symbol of virginity and purity. And I mean, what a clever camouflage for Yuri symbolism that fits into the story as diegetic imagery, while being an obvious nod to anyone that is already in the know. The convergence of Catholicism and Yuri with the lily feels like it was planned, and like I hinted in the history of Yuri, it kinda was. Back during the prime of Class S, the increasing prominence of gender-segregated schools, many run by religious organizations, introduced Catholic schools as a prominent backdrop for Class S work. All-girls Catholic schools offered a uniquely exotic yet temporary setting, where girls could explore adolescent passions before they fully mature into women and enter society. Both Shiroi Heia no Futari and Marimite leaned into the intrigue of Catholicism and situated their stories in an all-girls Catholic school setting. While not exactly set in a Catholic school, even though the Exosisters totally look like they are of schoolgirl age, the Exosisters borrow heavily from Catholic themes, albeit the much more loose and fictional Japanese brand of Catholicism. To give a quick rundown on the notable Catholic references, the Exosisters are obviously Exorcist sisters, sisters referring to the religious sister in the Catholic Church, women who have taken vows dedicated to apostolic work. The Exosisters follow a similar method of exorcisms as the Catholic Church, where they recite prayers invoking God or archangels for divine intervention. They both use holy water to ward off demons, as well as commanding the demons by name to exert power over them. As for other references, a lot of the Exosister cards use Latin names, the official language of the Vatican City and the Catholic Church. Also, the transformed Exosisters reference the Judeo-Christian archangels, Michael, Cassiel, Gabriel, and Raphael. Finally, the number 8, the number of Christ, can be found everywhere in the cards. Before anyone argues that these aren't true Catholic references, or that they aren't exclusively Catholic imagery, let me point you to the smarter folks over on TV Tropes who wrote, "Since Japan doesn't have a large population of Christians, local audiences don't especially know nor care a great deal about the total accuracy in the depiction of the church. Their cultures do have some exposure to Christianity, especially Catholicism. As such, Catholicism has just the right mix of exotic symbolism that can still be recognized while still coming across as foreign and interesting." Okay, so the Exosisters have a Catholic setting that Yuri works like to latch onto. What else? In many Yuri and Class S works, the intimate same-sex relationships often blossom between upper and underclassmen, or the Senpai-Kohai relationship. The Kohai, inexperienced in the rules and expectations of the new school, would develop deep admiration and respect for the Senpai, already well-versed in this micro-society. Sometimes the Senpai would display a rebellious personality, for the protagonist to gradually uncover a softer side that cares for her Kohai. In Shiroi Heia no Futari, this relationship is exemplified in the naive new girl Rosine and her delinquent roommate Simone. Despite Simone's mean mocking of Rosine, in seeing each other's vulnerabilities, they begin to feel love for one another. It is also a similar story for Marimite as well. In Marimite, the school has a soror system that binds Senpai and Kohai under a vow of sisterhood. Yumi, the bashful Kohai, becomes sorors with the aloof and sometimes rough Senpai Sachiko. These two would also develop an intimate emotional bond. The Exosisters also prominently showcase a sisterly bond in both lore and mechanics. The Exosisters, when fighting demons, typically form teams of 2 under the vow of sisterhood. The members of Lilium also have these pairings of Ellis with Stella and Irene with Sophia. The archetype further emphasizes the pairings by applying additional beneficial effects when performing actions involving the appropriate pair. Where things get interesting is the addition of another sister, Exosister Martha. In the lore pages, Ellis is mentioned to have had a partner before Stella that went missing in battle, with all clues strongly suggesting this missing partner being Martha. The Martha and Ellis pair seems to check all the boxes of a typical Senpai-Kohai relationship, with Ellis being the bright-eyed Kohai, contrasted against the mature and collected Martha. Martha also exudes the energy of a rebellious badass, often characterized in the Senpai role. Going even further, I believe Martha's missing in action status feeds into an unfortunate trope of Class S and many early Yuri works, in the tragic ending. As many Class S and early Yuri works focused on portraying intimate same-sex relationships as deeply passionate yet ephemeral, these relationships often concluded in death or separation. It is as if these works were catering to an audience that likened these same-sex relationships as girls just playing at love in school. The girls would eventually have to grow up and go on to find real love with a man or face dire consequences. Shiroi Heya no Futari exemplifies one of these consequences, where Rosine rejects Simone and runs away from the boarding school after gossip spreads of her relationship with Simone. This leads to a distraught Simone inciting her own death. In contrast, Marimite avoids a tragic ending, instead opting to keep Sachiko and Yumi's relationship platonic. The ending becomes a symbolic passing of the torch as Sachiko graduates and Yumi takes the role of Senpai to her new Kohai Sora. For the Exosisters, Martha going MIA on Ellis feels like a subtle nod to this trope. The circumstances surrounding Martha's absence aren't clear, whether her absence was the tragedy or if there is a tragedy yet to come. What is clear is that Ellis rose to the occasion, taking on the role of leader for her team, completing the passing of the torch. Beyond that, we really need Konami to release more Exosister support to continue their story. In recent trends, Yuri works have attempted to break out of the problematic tragic ending trope by portraying same-sex relationships in a more positive light. So maybe we might even get a touching reunion scene between Martha and Ellis. Speaking of positive portrayal, that brings me to the last characteristic I wanted to mention, that being the Exosisters as magical girls. So what makes the Exosisters magical girls? Well, they are a team of girls that transform using a magically imbued object to power up and fight against forces of evil. Then do the Exosisters being magical girls contribute at all to them being Yuri? While Yuri and magical girls have not gone explicitly hand in hand, Yuri content has made frequent appearances in magical girl media. But importantly, it was a specific, very famous magical girl show that shined a bright light onto Yuri content in mainstream media, during a time when positive representation was absurdly rare. Sailor Moon was by no means the first magical girl show, nor was it a show centered around Yuri themes. However, Sailor Moon played a critical role for Yuri media in offering the world the first positive anime portrayal of a lesbian couple presented as such on Japanese television. The characters Haruka and Michiru, or Sailor Uranus and Neptune, were a fully canonical same-sex couple that was not played for comedy or villainy, that remained a couple till the end. No tragic death or growing out of adolescent whims for them. The mainstream popularity of Sailor Moon opened the floodgates to magical girls as a genre where Yuri themes could be explored, spawning countless works inspired by Sailor Moon with an abundance of Yuri undertones and overtones. Therefore, the decidedly Yuri Exosister archetype also being magical girls makes total sense for me. I think that about covers what I managed to dig up regarding the Exosisters' ties to the Yuri genre. I'm pretty confident the Exosister archetype was designed with intent to reference as many Yuri tropes as possible, which brings me to my biggest question. Why? Why has Konami decided to make a Yuri archetype? Are they trying to expand their game to a wider audience by targeting various niche communities? Or are they catering to their predominantly male audience by expanding their variety of fan service archetypes? Or maybe the team had a designer that was passionate about Yuri media. I guess only the overlords at Konami would know the real answer, but I do know that researching for this video has greatly increased my appreciation for the Exosister archetype, and I'll probably be maining this deck for a while.